Hey, what's up everybody, and how are you this afternoon? Alrighty then. My name is Foxhead, the Dreamy Fox, and today we are here to rank all 18 types from Pokemon. I tried to make this list from a half biased, half non-biased perspective. The biggest factors for this listing are how well the typings are built, like does it have good weaknesses to strengths, how well they play, like is it fun to play this type, and how useful the move variety is. I also want to make a note to say that there are no bad types here. Just because I put a type low, it just means that from a broad overview that my type may not, that type may not be as good on paper as another type. Um, this is in no way, shape, or form me trying to say that your favorite type sucks. It's just important to remember that the fun of Pokemon is building the team that matches you, how you want to play, your play style, all that. With the criteria out of the way, let's jump into the list, shall we? Number 18 is the rock types. Now, honestly, I feel really bad about putting rock types dead last in a small way, but in another way, some people might have saw this coming. First of all, rock type Pokemon are weak to 5 types altogether, tied with grass for having the most amount of weaknesses of any type. That's crazy for a game with 18 types. That means a little over 1/4 of all Pokemon, roughly, can damage these guys. Then comes their stats. Compared to the vastly better steel typing, rocks just aren't the apex defensive Pokemon anymore. They don't hold up with fighting types and attacks either, rendering it the worst of the options at any given moment. The real nail in the coffin for me personally is move accuracy. For some reason, a lot of rock type moves have a less successful hit rate than most other moves, meaning you're far less likely to hit with those moves than you are with any other type of move. It doesn't help that this type is only strong against 3 other types at that. Um, Fire types get paired with fighting types a lot, so that's, kind of bad for it. And even if they don't get paired with fighting types, they also can learn Solar Beam a lot. Um, Plus, ice types also usually have access to water typing, um, which is sometimes due to dual typing and sometimes due to just like overall moves. But with those considering, then they've only really got one real strength, and that is flying types, which often don't have a very good, reliable way of dealing with a rock type. Um, it also does have useful moves like Stealth Rock, um, but if I had to have a move like that personally, I'd rather teach it to a dual typed Pokemon instead of a rock type as a mono. Just to name a few rock types to give respect. Um, there are Aggron, Tyranitar, Cleavor, Kabutops, Aerodactyl, and even though there's some niche for some people, I love Rampardos and Bastiodon. The rock typing itself may not be great, but it does have some hard-hitting moves like Head Smash, Stealth Rock, Power Jam, and Smackdown that definitely keep it from being a don't pick this type move. Moving into the normal types at number 17, normal types are surprisingly strong for their typing. So why is it that normal types are so low on my list? It's simple. First off, normal types are the only types in the game that aren't strong against any other typing. There's no super effective damage, so it's unlikely that you'll ever one-shot an opponent. They can be taking tanky Pokemon, but generally if you're looking for a tank to add to your team, you're better off looking for a ground, steel, or even a dragon type to add to your team than a normal type. Then there's weaknesses. This is actually a slight strength for normal as it's only weak to one type, and that is fighting. However, this also means normal has one weakness, no strengths. Then we look at the special factor and what they what all actually resists normal types. Well, normal types can't hurt ghost types at all with normal type moves unless you specifically use a move that allows you to attack ghost types. Then, attacking poison, fire, or even electric type Pokemon can backfire on you unless you've got your Pokemon built for special attack. Then, there's the fact that normal types don't do very well against rock or steel type Pokemon, and even types like fighting or dragon can push normal types too far. Overall, this type just has too many glaring weaknesses for me to rank it any higher, despite the typing actually having a pretty decent variety of moves. Just for some examples of some moves are Swords Dance, Screech, Extreme Speed, and Protect. Normal typing, in my opinion, is better off as a move pool than an actual monotyping. I want to sing the praises of Snorlax, Stoutland, and Blissey for really making this type more viable than the Pokemon that you switch out at the beginning. Um, but anyways, we're moving on to number 16, which is the Bug type. At one point, I might have called Bug types the weakest collection of Pokemon ever. And I would have been correct up until Johto, where we got Heracross and Skizor. And we'd keep getting bangers throughout the years with Centiskorch and Volcarona. Now, we obviously still have plenty of weak and less useful bug Pokemon, but for the decent ones, this is actually pretty solid typing. It's strong against Grass, Dark, and Psychic, and Psychic and Dark being especially useful, since in Gen 1 it was really hard to beat a Psychic type Pokemon, and up until Gen 6, Dark types were a force to be reckoned with. They're also only weak to 3 types, Rock, Fire, and Flying. These Pokemon also have high speed stats, which can allow you to use moves like U-Turn to really cause battlefield mayhem. What puts bug types so low on the list is that fire and flying are common types to add to your team, so more often than not, your Pokemon may have trouble dealing with those typings. They're also not that strong when it comes to taking a hit. Usually a single move is all it takes, and I do want to shout out some bug types before moving on, as I have been with other typings. I just want to shout out Beedrill for getting the steel typing when it Mega Evolves, and also some moves just to tickle your fancy are Leech Life, U-Turn, Mega Horns, Sticky Web, and First Impression. Now moving on to number 15 is Ice types. Okay, so I actually love the Ice typings, and I wish that there was some more of them, but personal bias aside, they admittedly aren't as good as many other types in Pokemon. Sorry. First of all, there are a lot of slow Pokemon in this category, which hurts it quite a bit as Ice types are built better as glass cannons, so having the possibility of getting shattered before you can even launch your first attack really dampens this type's chances of being a good pick for your team. Type-wise, it does pretty effective work, being effective against 4 typings in all: Flying, Grass, Dragon, and Ground. Dragon and Ground are big winners because those are pretty big threats, and a fast enough Ice type can clean house pretty efficiently, especially if using a Snowstorm Blizzard setup. However, it also has 4 weaknesses to go with those strengths: Fire, Fighting, Steel, and Rock. Those first 3 are big types for teams, so the big problem here is that even if you find a fast enough Ice type to keep up, it will likely find limited usage on your team, especially since there are more effective ways of dealing with dragons. Fairy types, for example, and ground types, which are water and grass, just for example. Overall, this unfortunately is a high risk, high reward Pokemon type with less reward than there is risk. I do want to shout out some great Ice types though, because like I said, there are no bad types in this Pokemon game. Let's hear it for Frostlass, Alolan Ninetales, and Baxcalibur. Also, moves like Blizzard and a Snowstorm, Frost Breath, and Ice Spinner are some of my favorite moves to use for the Ice types. We're going to move on to number 14, which is the Flying types. When I was young, I always made it a point to add the regional bird Pokemon to my team. I actually did this all the way up to until Gen 7, where Toucannon joined my team. However, in hindsight, there were usually much better options for team building, especially nowadays with flying types having an impressive array of dual typings. So, why are flying types so low on my list? Because flying types often aren't as useful or versatile as many other moves. It's effective against 3 types: grass, bug, and fighting. Here's the problem: flying type moves are more often than not physical moves, and since fighting types usually have bulky defenses, they actually aren't as useful as they would be on paper. As for grass and bug, both of those can be taken out more effectively with a fire type Pokemon. Its weaknesses are electric, rock, and ice, which a normal flying type Pokemon would have very little defense against. All that is to say, flying types are best used as dual type Pokemon, rather than trying to stand as a mono flying type. My favorite flying types growing up were Staraptor, Pidgeot, Farfetch'd, and Honchkrow. But nowadays I lean more towards Talonflame, Corviknight, Altaria, and Archeops, all of which are dual types that are pretty impressive in my opinion. Also, Roost and Aerial Ace are must-haves for my flying types usually, just to call out some moves. Um, Now we're going to move on to number 13, which is the Grass type. It sucks to put one of the starter trio this low, but we all kind of knew it was inevitable. Being weak to a whole 5 types? Yikes. Being only strong against only 3 types? Double yikes. The saving grace here, advantage-wise, is it takes out water and ground types. Both are proven very effective in battle. Another push against grass is that some types that beat it are high damage special attackers, particularly fire and ice. Now, grass types do have a few advantages to speak of. First off, grass types are usually bulky Pokemon, or fast Pokemon who place the groundwork for other Pokemon to do well. Secondly, grass types are masters of status effects and chip damage. Thirdly, is grass types are the best types of like having versatility and healing itself. Leech Seed, Giga Drain, Ingrain, and if you're lucky, even a grassy terrain. Those are all like a moveset that could help you heal yourself completely with every turn. Their movesets are also versatile and useful, and dual typings help grass types remain on the map as a tricky yet powerful type. Without cheating and using starters, I want to list a few worthwhile grass types in my opinion: Roserade, Serena, Leavanny, and Ludicolo. Also, aside from life leeching moves, some other grass type moves to think about are Razor Leaf, Grass Knot, Petal Storm, and Magical Leaf. Now we're going to move on to number 12, which is the Poison type. Poison typing suffers from not being deadly enough, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. Poison types are the only super effective against grass, and of course, fairy. You know, the type that wasn't introduced until Gen 6. That means for 5 generations, this type was only effective against grass, which has four other weaknesses. Even before the steel and dark types were added, this made poison a really niche pick, especially when psychic and ground types are both solid picks for teams, putting you in danger. It does have the ability to poison other Pokemon, which is nice and all, but given how many types actually resist or flat out ignore poison, that ability becomes low tier. Poison types aren't completely useless though. They work very well as secondary typings, given something dangerous has a bigger role. The poison type moves list is hit or miss depending on if you're fighting a Pokemon that can actually be poisoned, but in the right hands, a poison type can be your team's deadliest assassin. Some great poison types to consider for your team are Toxapex, Victory Bell, Scolipede, Toxicroak, and Nidoking. Also, some solid moves from poison that come to mind are Toxic, Cross Poison, Sludge Wave, and Venoshock. Also, I'm going to grab a drink real quick because I'm talking really fast. Sorry, I've got a time limit here, and I ran out when I was trying to do this video earlier, so I'm trying to run through it real quick. Hurrah. So, right now, we're moving into number 11, Psychic types. Psychics can be devastating, which should show you how pressed this list is getting. They basically embody the special attack stat, and some are even special defense walls. Their movesets are usually devastating and typically have some added effects, and they have several movesets that help change the flow of battle. So, why are they not in the top 10? Well, for starters, many of these Pokemon fill the role of glass cannons. A single powerful physical physical move may fell them, and they're weak to three types: Dark, Ghost, and Bug. Psychics can't do any damage to Dark, making it one of the few types that actually outright negates like another type. Um, they used to be nearly unstoppable in Gen 1, rivaled only by the mighty dragon types, but with nerfs and the introduction of new typings, this type that was once mighty, it's starting to slip. Psychics are strong against fighting types and poison types, which does help, but considering that fighting types often have wide movesets, it's possible that they may not, the matchup might not be as favorable as you'd like. I'd also like to mention that my favorite two Pokemon are Psychic types, Gardevoir and Meloetta. Some other great Psychic choices to go with are Medicham, Gallade, Slowbro, and Alakazam. And some moves that you might want to consider are Psychic, Skill Swap, Trick Room, Psycho Cut, and Future Sight, all of which are from the elite group of Psychic. Moving into number 10, we have the Ghost types. Given how Ghost types are super effective against each other, their only different type matchups are Psychic, which are usually strong against Dark, and strong against Ghost and Dark, which are usually, Ghost are weak against. I don't know why I just messed that all up, but anyway, Ghost types are also completely immune to normal type moves unless they're identified, and they do devastating effects out. Um, what holds the Ghost typing back is its moveset isn't very offensive. Ghost types are built for mischievous fun, tactics, and misdirection. This makes them goats on the right team, and a possible weak link on the wrong one. Another advantage of the Ghost typing is it's endlessly compatible with dual typings. Ghosts are just the spirits of something that has lived before, so there will likely be a dual Ghost type of all types one day. That makes team building a lot more fun and versatile, and Ghost types tend to have high special attacks, dealing high damage with moves like Shadow Ball, and if you get lucky with one that has a high attack, you can use Shadow Claw. They also have moves like Lick, Shadow Sneak, and Curse, which are some personal Ghost picks of mine. Also for Pokemon, let's go Gengar, Dusknoir, Mismagius, Aegislash, and Bennett, all of which kind of personal favorites to use. Now moving into 9, we've got Dark types. Honestly, when it comes to the Psychic, Ghost, and Dark trio, they're all kind of interchangeable depending on the player and playstyle, but at the end of the day, I find Dark types to come out on top personally for me. Um, they're high damage physical attackers for the most part, with access to a number of stat changing abilities, item tampering, fake outs, flinching effects, and numerous other tricks. It's also effective against both of its counterparts, Psychic and Ghost, and its weaknesses are Fairy and oddly enough, Bug types. Whereas it, excuse me, whereas it does have more weaknesses than strengths, I feel like the effects it causes more than make up for that. Their biggest downfall and the reason they aren't higher up is due to the fact that Fairy and Fighting types are very useful and common in modern teams, meaning you have two possible weaknesses around. To call out some great Dark types, let's see Absol, Pangoro, Weavile, and for moves, let's go Taunt. Can really throw off some opponents, Sucker Punch, and Dark Pulse. And you know what? Let's throw in Night Slash. Now we're gonna move in to number 8, Electric types. Everyone who thinks the Pikachu is overhyped may be underestimating the electric typing a little bit. First of all, they actually only have one weakness, a trait that's only shared by one other type, the normal type. This alone makes it special, but the fact that it also has two strengths definitely sets it apart from the normal typing. Electric is strong against flying types, and water types. Their main squeeze is actually flying types, however, as several water types are dual types to have access to ground typing via moves, or if they aren't dual typed, they at least have it via moveset. But flying types do not have that luxury. Electric types may not be effective against ground types at all, and it doesn't do much damage against a few other types, most notably for me is rock, but that doesn't stop them from hitting hard. Paralysis is debatably better than poisoning in my opinion, because it gives your Pokemon a huge speed advantage if used correctly, and with a versatile and useful moveset, there's very little reason you should avoid having an electric type on your team. Some electric type Pokemon I like to use are Raichu, Manectric, Jolteon, Galvantula, Pachirisu, and Emolga. Some worthwhile moves to consider are Electro Web, Volt Tackle, Thunderbolt, and Electro Ball. I even want to shout out Nuzzle as a great early game move. Now moving into number 7, the water types. Okay, so I have to clarify, water types almost etched out fire. But I decided to go with fire, and I will explain why. For now, let's just get into my explanation on water. Water types are perhaps the most abundant type in Pokemon, so there's lots of variety to choose from them. Several water type Pokemon have high defenses and impressive movesets with decent damage. They often have access to ice type moves as well, making them decent clutch Pokemon against dragon types, and even giving them a way to fight back against grass types. Given how they are dual typed with ground sometimes, that even makes them monsters against electric types, which covers their weaknesses. I love that the water type comes in huge varieties. Some have high speeds, some have high attacks, some have high special attacks, some have high HP, etc., etc. You know the gist. There's 6 types that I found to be personally better than this. As you know, fire is one of them. But I do want to shout out some Pokemon here, being Poliwrath, Seismitoad, Pelipper, Lantern, Gyarados, and Omastar. Also, Surf is a must-have for my team, and moves like Aqua Jet, Aura Ring, Hydro Cannon, Scald, and Muddy Water really help this type be one of my favorites for strategic gameplay and team building. Now, moving into number 6, the Fire type. It's just barely etching out over water, for me, personally, is the Fire type. Now, I'm mostly picking Fire over the fact that I find the moveset slightly more useful in utility. Slightly. You can absolutely incinerate a health bar with enough effort and chip damage if you use it correctly. If you burn them, activate Fire Spin, and then pile on high damage with moves like Flare Blitz or Lava Plume, and activate Sunny Day somewhere in between all that, you can just watch somebody's health bar go boom. Admittedly though, fire works both ways, and some fire type moves can cause more harm than good. It's important to know when and how to use them. There's also pretty good balance between physical and special type moves, allowing you to tinker around and make your team more as you see fit. Also, most fire type Pokemon are just kind of cool in my opinion, and I did mention that part of my criteria was how well I enjoyed playing them. I do want to shout out some Pokemon here because I love fire types. Possibly, like, if I was ranking this by personal, like 100% bias, fire type might be like right on top. But we gotta list off Marowak, Turtonator, I don't know if I said that one right, Scovillain, Arcanine, and I know I said no starters, but I have got to drop my boy Infernape in here because he is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. It's the starter that I chose when I first started playing. Pokemon Pearl was my favorite, my first Pokemon game, and so like it has a special place in my heart. And I also chose the fire starter when I started playing all the rest of the games, all the way up until Gen 6. So fire types actually mean a lot to me. Some fire type moves that I want to mention before I move on are Flamethrower, Fire Punch, Flame Charge, and Flame Wheel, since those are all moves that are just iconic in my opinion. Now, moving on to number 5, getting into the top 5 here, we've got the fighting types. When it comes to outright physical damage, none stand quite on the level of the legendary fighting types. Whereas their special defense is usually lacking, they're typically faster Pokemon who can cause crippling damage before an attack is launched. You'd also be surprised how versatile a fighting type moveset can be. They can cause massive damage, break through barriers, increase priority, cause devastating counterattacks, increase their stats, guarantee hits, and cause many more effects. They're weak to Psychic and Flying type Pokemon, as well as Fairy types, and this would be a problem if not for the fact that fighting types can often learn a variety of other type moves, helping them counter whatever is in their way. Psychic is their biggest weakness, as they're more likely to end up learning an electric type move or a steel type move to deal with problems than they are a dark type move. The flip side is that it's one of only 2 types that is super effective against 5 different types. Those types are Dark, Ice, Normal, Rock, and Steel. Being able to reliably harm Normal, Steel, and Rock types makes the fighting type the best tank killing type in all of Pokemon. To name a few fighting types, I'm just going to call out Lucario, Hawlucha, Primeape, Hitmonchan, and Mienshao. I'd also like to point out Brick Break, Counter, Close Combat, X-Kick, Mach Punch, and Aura Spear as some of my favorite Pokemon fighting moves. Now moving into the number 4 spot, we've got the Dragon typing. Dragon types at one point were the top of the food chain, so it feels weird putting them outside the top 3. Sadly, however, Dragon types took a nerf that dethroned them a few pegs. Dragon types are only super effective against one type, that being itself. That means its only type, its only strength is also its biggest weakness. Now, alongside Ice and Fairy types, it's also got those weaknesses. So it's comparably got 1 strength, 3 weaknesses. And its strength is itself, which is not great. So why is it still this high up on the list? Well, for starters, it can learn some pretty reliable moves to deal with those. It can learn Flamethrower, Iron Head, and other types to counter more, better. I don't know where I was going with that. I had a brain fart. But the Fairy type is where your problem is going to lie. They destroy dragons most of the time, but most dragons are pseudo-legends, which means it does also have another extreme advantage to hold it at the top 3. They're going to have extremely high stats, higher than your normal starters. In fact, these guys are still absolute must-haves on your team. What really keeps dragons from my top 3 spot is the their popularity, ironically. So many people used to love running dragons that it has practically become a must-have to have a fairy type in your team. That put dragons here. Though, if we ever do get a dragon fairy type, it may become the strongest Pokemon ever. If you really want to call out some Pokemon here, because, you could call out every dragon type. But if I just had to call out a few, Garchomp, Hydreigon, Haxorus, Dragonite, and Salamence are just the ones that come to mind right off the bat. And some moves that I can list are Dragon Rush, Draco Meteor, Dragon Tail, and Outrage. Now, moving into the number 3 spot, we have Fairy types. Honestly, Dark, Steel, and Fairy types were all smart, game-changing additions to the game. The most important thing that it gave us, though, is Dragon types now have a big nightmare. There are countless Fairy type Pokemon now, with some even being retypes from older games. Fairy soon became a must-have on the team, not just for dragons, but also for dark and fighting types. Given how most of the time those three types have strong physical attackers, it makes sense that their opposition of a Pokemon type would have a high special attack. Fairy types are also weak to poison and steel type moves, though fairy types often outspeed steel types and can often survive poison long enough to take out its attacker. This makes fairy types extremely tanky, extremely powerful, and extremely useful. Some call out fairy types, for me, are Azumarill, Sylveon, and Mimikyu, and Alchemy, and Togekiss. And I'm gonna stop before I keep going. Some fairy type moves, just to name like my top 3, are Draining Kiss, Moonblast, and Dazzling Gleam. Now we're going to move into number 2, the Steel type. The Steel type basically took everything about the Rock type, copied it, and made it better. Steel types are absolute tanks of Pokemon, and even having super effective, I don't know where I was going. Even having a super effective Pokemon against these behemoths may not do you any good. They have a lot more moves that are basically made for steamrolling your opponent with intense force, both physical moves like Iron Head and Gigaton Hammer, and special moves like Flash Cannon and Steel Beam. Steel type weaknesses may be one thing holding the elite thing. I don't know why I keep having a brain fart this late in the thing. Steel type weaknesses may be the one thing holding it back from number 1. Being weak to ground, fire, and fighting mean a well-built team will always have a reliable way of causing damage to a steel type. It's strong against fairy, ice, and rock, but in harsh competitive, the fairy type advantage may be its biggest saving grace, having the best chance of one-shotting a fairy type with the right move. Some grade A steel types to consider are Metagross, Skarmory, Tinkaton, Steelix, and I forget the last one that I was thinking of, but yeah, Steelix. And some moves to consider are Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, Heavy Slam, Shift Gear, Iron Defense, and one of my personal favorite, Gholdengo's Make It Rain. Gholdengo, that's who I was going to say. Why couldn't I remember that? Now, if you haven't pieced it together, we move into number 1, which is the ground type. Ground is the best type in Pokemon in my opinion due to several factors. For starters, it's a great defensive typing. It's completely immune to electric type attacks, and it's got 5 whole advantages as opposed to only 3 weaknesses. Aside from the fighting type, this is the only Pokemon type with that amazing coverage. It's effective against electric, fire, poison, rock, and steel. And its weaknesses are water, ice, and grass. The important thing here are first up, steel and rock. This makes ground types an elite defensive pick because it tends to overpower massively tanky Pokemon. Then, the resistances to poison and fire are important too. The 2 most important effective chip damage types being rendered useless against a defensive Pokemon. That's elite strategy right there. Electric resistance is just a bonus, since it's the only type in the game that is outright electric proof. Now, water as a weakness kinda sucks, since water types are everywhere, but a well-built ground type may still come out on top with a little luck and some strategy. Yes, it's weak to grass and ice too, but with ground types often having more versatile movesets, they often have a counter of some sort to those 2 types. Also, the moveset for ground type is top tier. Moves like Sandstorm, Earthquake, Dig, and Earth Power all remind me why this type is the most solid pick for Pokemon. Some picks for ground type Pokemon to consider are Hippowdon, Escadrille, Rhyperior, Gliscor, and Crocodile. And there you have it. Now, I know some will agree with this list and most won't. That being said, that's the beautiful thing about individuality. We all have our own opinions, and it's what makes us unique. Just like in the universe of Pokemon, it is so much better when you have a variety of different types to help keep everything fresh and help you play the way you deserve to. I love to see what your lists are and why you rank the types the way that you do, so if it tickles your fancy, as always, please leave it in the comment section, and I will read it later. I promise I will always read your comments. After all, I do this for fun and not for fame. I do plan on continuing my ranking series now that I've gotten back into writing my scripts, with Pocketail Island being my next generation of Pokemon, not Pokemon, Pocketail Island being my next generation of Total Drama characters to work on, and I actually do have that script done now, finally. And I've already got the original cast done, so like if you're interested in checking that out, you can. If that doesn't grab your attention, I'm also working on a ranking of Death Battle Season 1, so if that interests you, you'll be pleased to know that I'm doing the entirety of Death Battle at some point. I'm starting Season 1 and just kind of going onwards. If neither of those things interest you, then I'm sorry, but I will be working on more scripts, on more media, so hopefully I find something that you like eventually. I won't take up too much more of your time, so hasta la pasta, see you later. I will see you later. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. This is Foxhead the Dreamy Fox signing off.